Okay, so, oops, you have to push the share button first. All right, so welcome to our last Community and Education webinar for the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs for the month of February 2019. We've been talking about getting clients all month long, and we're going to extend it because it's been such a popular topic and such a badly needed topic, and we are grateful to continue the conversation. So let's do that. Just know that in NACWE we have these webinars every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. They're free for everyone. The replays aren't offered for everyone. The replays, most of them, the first replay of the month goes into our free training page, which you can find at the top of our website, NACWE.org. And the rest of the replays, and all of the replays actually go into our members only vault, which has over 600 offerings in it to date. And we add, of course, we're adding 2 every week. So as you can imagine, there will be 700 offerings in there by the end of the year. Love that about us. Love it. I'm Karen Lindwall-Bourg. I'm the 2nd president for the National Association of Christian Women Entrepreneurs. Love what I do. Miss everybody when we're not together for whatever reasons, traveling and that sort of thing. So just NACWE benefits are that we build a great like-minded Christian women entrepreneur community so you don't feel so alone. We have networking opportunities the first Tuesday of every month. We don't have a really long educational opportunity. We just sort of introduce the topic of the month and we talk about it a little bit, but the rest of the time we talk about you. So you need to come the first Tuesday of every month. And then the rest of the weeks are every Tuesday and every Wednesday we offer educational opportunities, and then we offer missions opportunities. We have spent some time in Guatemala and have adopted a little girl from Guatemala as well to sort of pay it forward. Bless others as God has blessed us. Coming up, we have NACWE Writing Retreat, March 21st to 24th. That web page ought to be popping up within the next few days. So you'll have all the details, and of course you can ask me questions about it later. In May, we will try to go back to Guatemala for the 2nd year in a row. And in September, we will have our annual conference. Lots about the sweetness of being an entrepreneur. We're going to have lots of chocolate there. Actually, Sherry Fitzgerald, the original founder of Sherry's Berries, the dipped strawberries, will be there with us. So
I've heard about those. I've heard they're really good.
They really are. You can find her at berriedinchocolate.com now instead of sherrysberries.com. But she brings chocolate-covered strawberries to every presentation she ever does. She actually takes chocolate-covered strawberries on the airplane with her when she flies on the airplane, and she's trained. They let her be trained to roll the cart up and down the aisle and serve everyone herself. She's got lots of wonderful stories. I'm looking forward to spending more time with her. So y'all mark your calendars for September 21st to 22nd. So, or was it 20th to 21st? Yeah. Go to NACWE.org/calendar, I think. Let us know if something's missing on there, but I think everything you need to know about what we do on a daily basis and how to click the button and get there really easily is right here on the calendar. Why we didn't do the calendar years before, I don't really know. I'm going to stop right there because I want to hear about sales conversations today from Kris. I'm going to pray us in, and y'all can always ask me in the chat room if I left something out. My brain is only functioning halfway today. So let me pray us in and get Kris started. This is one of the parts that I'm looking forward to the most, because even in the last few weeks, as we've talked about filling the pipeline and great follow-up and how to set up your marketing plan with the Get Clients Now program, I've heard you, Kris, say words, use verbiage, and thought, oh, I could say that. I could do that. I could feel comfortable doing that. It's not threatening. It actually was kind of fun. And I've wanted to go back and watch all of our replays and just kind of take a few notes, because I think it'll take a little practice for me to feel comfortable with it. And so I know there will be more of that today, not to put any pressure on you, but pining for today, for sure, and then for the immersion program, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So let me pray us in. Father God, we're so grateful. I couldn't do this alone. I wouldn't want to. I couldn't. So I'm grateful for Christian women entrepreneurs that rub shoulders together, are willing to sit in a room like this together, teach one another, learn from one another, and go and take what we've learned and put some of it into action. We've seen amazing things happen over these last few years in NACWE, and even over these last few months already, because people have begun to implement some of these strategies and tactics. And so I'm grateful, Lord. I pray a special blessing on Kris as she brings message to us today. Lord, I pray that you'd bless everyone in the room. Lord, we've heard from so many, even in our work group this morning, so many NACWE sisters and Christian women entrepreneurs in our circles that are struggling with health challenges. And so we just lift everyone up for healing, Lord, and for only your special touch. And then we just would pray that what we do, what we take away from today, what we do with it, will bring you glory and honor. What more could we ask for? We just want to hear you say, well done, good and faithful servant. So Lord, help us to take steps toward that end. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. All right, you are on.
Okay, great. Let me grab my book real quick. I forgot to put it on the desktop. So this is the sacred tome, if we will, for the hour, the Get Clients Now book by C.J. Hayden. And those of you on no video, I'd love looking at your names. I would love looking at your faces more if you're available to do that. And Angela, just FYI, I did see that Aggie shirt already. So, you're busted because I'm an Aggie too. So there you go. Because that's what you got to do when you're an Aggie. Whoop. Yeah, all of us crazy Ags here in the Bay Area get together for happy hour once a month, and then muster, of course, and football every year. And so it's crazy. So, but today we're going to talk about sales conversations, which A&M is very good at apparently, because, we're still talking about it all these years later. So what is a sales conversation? How does it go? All that kind of good stuff. And again, I definitely have slides, and mostly what I want is for this to be a conversation amongst all of us. There's a lot of wisdom in the room already, so I feel like this is more talking with each other than me talking at you. So, we'll dive in, and I will stop a lot and ask questions, and there'll be a bunch of opportunities for us to dig more deeply into what it's like for you and what we want to do with this information. All right, here we go. How to have a sales conversation. You'll remember our universal marketing cycle, obviously. This is where we started everything a couple weeks back. And I know there's some new faces on the call here today. So if you haven't had the opportunity to look at the past two videos where we talked about, Baylor. Oh dear. My brother did go to Baylor, Karen, so it's okay. We'll let you in. So the whole thing started with a conversation about the universal marketing cycle. And so what we're doing today is, and then last week we talked about marketing. How do you get people into the pipeline? What are these? Where's my cursor? My cursor went away. Here we go. How do you get people in the marketing, in the pipeline? Like, what are these things? What are these marketing strategies that you use to start putting people in the pipeline? Well, it's all fine and well to start putting people into this big follow-up bucket, but then that means you've got to do something to create a sales conversation, create an opportunity for selling to happen at all. So that's where we're at now. We started first off with, let's put some people in the pipeline and realize that we need to follow up, which means we need to have sales conversations, which means we need to hopefully close some sales. And then of course, referral partners are a whole separate thing. We can touch on that a bit today. Last conversation was just about what marketing strategies are the right fit for you. And that's really dependent on your personal style, what's going to be appropriate for your clients, where you feel the most comfort or interest, all that good stuff. So today, we are going to go right into the heart of it, which is at some point, you're going to have to ask somebody to work with you. Because a lot of times what happens is we get into a conversation with folks and we feel like the conversation's going really well. And then we all just kind of stand around after that. We never say, And therefore, would you like to work with me and do that thing we were just talking about together? And a lot of that is because we may not realize we're having a sales conversation, or because when it comes to that final bit where you need to say, great, I'm glad you're on board, would you like to do it together? If we can't make that part come out of our mouth, it's definitely not. Most people will not say yes just because we want them to. They will say yes because we've asked them. People like to be invited. So it's something just to remember, that we need to invite them to say hello, essentially. There we go. Okay, great. And this is the part where we need to remember to breathe, because just even talking about this usually gets a little bit of adrenaline going for people. So the big takeaway here is that, there we go, clients are people too. So really what's happening here is a sales conversation is actually just a conversation between two humans. Theoretically, the person is in front of you because you've got something in common, or they've expressed some kind of an interest in you, or maybe you're just meeting them for the first time at a mixer or a conference or something like that. Nonetheless, they're a human, and because they're standing there in front of you, you're allowed to talk about what you do. They're allowed to talk about what they do. And the conversation will probably turn at some point. So you want to talk with them, clearly not at them. And you want to listen to what they're saying. And of course you want to be kind and generous, because this is really not that much different than a bake sale or something down at the church bazaar, or, you know, the PTA that you're trying to sell. There's a lady that stands out front of my, I shop at Trader Joe's here in San Francisco. I love Trader Joe's. I know there's a Trader Joe's in Dallas now. I was so excited when that happened. Anyway, there's always a lady standing outside of the Trader Joe's here selling different types of candy, so that her class, it's always a science trip. And I always buy something from her, not because I need another set of Kit Kats, because I don't, but although they are delicious, but because she's so I know, right? Because she's so enrolling, and she talks with me. And at this point we have a rapport, right? I've given her permission to sell candy to me. I want to hear from her what the class is doing. I know she's probably about 15 or something like that. So we're talking with each other. She's not talking at me. Like, you know, you can all picture some, because it's Girl Scout cookie season again, right? So you've probably been seeing a lot of Girl Scout cookies around, and the girls are all, do you want to buy cookies now? Which is adorable. And that's also what it looks like when people talk at you, not with you, right? So this lady over at Trader Joe's clearly has learned a few things about selling, because she has this generosity of spirit that kind of draws you in, and then you want to talk with her. So that's kind of like a sales conversation thing we're trying to create here. The thing we want to be careful of is not to be sharky. And so what happens is, and CJ Hayden is the one that told me this, I don't even know how many years ago at this point, 15 or some crazy thing like that. I saw her at an event, and she was reminding everybody to not be sharky. So the sharky bit comes in where there's a level of maybe mismatch from your intention and how it's landing with the person, or there's a level of mismatch in terms of how you're presenting yourself, or what words you're using, how you're making a sale. So the sharky bit really comes in from you being in this place of like, you need my stuff. My stuff is going to be good for you. Or you're highly pursuing them. You know, I don't know what kind of businesses we all have here, but there are a lot of very specific marketing styles that I don't prefer, which I find to be sharky. So a lot of us do this where we sort of overcompensate, but in a not great for us kind of way. So instead of marketing as much as you could, I heard Karen say that it was a revelation for you. I don't know if it was maybe last week, where you said something about when someone hands you the business card, you now have permission to get in touch with them. Well, that wouldn't be sharky, because there's an implied permission, perhaps an overt permission, but definitely an implied permission there. But the other example that I used, where the real estate agent put me on his mailing list because I was the speaker at his group, and he didn't even talk to me personally, but he apparently grabbed my card on the way out the door and threw me on his mailing list. I find that offensive. It's definitely spam, and I would call it sharky, right? It's just, there's no connection there. So, and now I'm just mad at him. So not only am I not going to buy anything from him, but I'm going to make sure nobody else does either. Nobody that I know, right? I mean, I'm not that vindictive, but you get what I'm saying. So when you're good at this sales conversation, the reward is that you get to do the thing that you're here to do with the people you want to do it with. And something that my second coach way back when, I guess he was maybe my third coach. Anyway, one of the people that I worked with very early on, very aggressive businessman who taught me some of the sales conversation we'll see today, but I modified it heavily because his style was way too aggressive for me. But one of the things that he said at the beginning of my career was, you are first and foremost a salesperson and a business person. And if you get good at sales, then your reward is to get to be a coach. So you can think of yourself as a coach if you want, but what you really are is a business person that needs to go sell stuff. And that should be the first thing on your mind. And then the second thing on your mind is, yay, now that I sold something, I can deliver the goods to the people in the way that I want to. For some people, that's a bit of a revelation. Nobody's looking shocked, so I can't tell if you guys are still breathing or not. But what I think I'd like to do here is stop at this point, because otherwise what we're going to do is pop into actually how to do the sales conversation and what the components of it are. So I'd like to just hit the pause button and hear from everybody. How are these concepts landing? That this is just a conversation between us chickens, as we used to say. And we don't want to be sharky, obviously. They're people too. And if we get good at sales, then we get rewarded by being able to do the other stuff that we wanted to do. So who wants to chime in first? And this is the reminder where I'm not afraid to call on people. All right, Beth, my long lost cousin, how is this landing for you? Are you okay to say a few words? You're on mute, my dear.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
I was saying I've been on several different multi-level marketing kinds of business with Shackley and Melaleuca, and not really been trained to be a salesperson, so I didn't do well at those businesses. And even though I like the products, I end up being my own and only customer. So yeah, talking at people did not work for me, and trying to get people to come to my house because I wanted them to come to my parties did not work for me. So I've done everything wrong.
Well, to be fair, MLM businesses can be a bit tricky to begin with, because a lot of people are predisposed to conversations in their own mind about what Amway means or what NACWE means or something like that. A lot of people have associations that aren't necessarily as positive as you'd like them to be. So it's a very small percentage. It's like 1 or 2% of the people that actually get into businesses like that make the money. There's the ones that you hear about, but it's a small number. Just don't be so hard on yourself in that regard.
Well, thank you.
And no one really teaches us how to sell. I mean, it's interesting. When I went through coaching school, my pal Leslie that I went to coaching school with, she's down in Palm Springs. She and I decided to do some stuff together for a couple of years, which was really nice, but we didn't have a clue what we were doing. So we considered it like going to graduate school, that we did a whole bunch of business building type programs, including hiring that coach that I mentioned. She and I did that together. She and I did like 3 or 4 things in a row to try to learn about business and business growth and sales and things like that. So it's like, hey, now I've got my training, but now I've got to go learn how to run a business and be a business person and sell stuff and all these other things that, I didn't get the memo about that before I started. Right. I'm sorry, Karen, what were you saying?
I think, Angela, are you popping in?
Sure. I was just thinking, back to all my marketing classes that I had at A&M. And it's been years, and I've forgotten most of the principles and things we did. And I'm trying to build this coaching speaking business that I just did last July. And I'm finding I need to find the clients. I need to learn how to talk to them. And so I like your statement. If you're good at sales, your reward is doing fun work with your clients.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's, you know, that early days, the first year or so when I first quit my job and was trying to build my business, that's when I was doing all that in-person networking, which I thought was just going to be a shoo-in. And it turns out that I'm not that great. And it's not that effective for me at all. And it can be very disheartening. So I hear you, Angela. Courtney, welcome. Did you have anything you wanted to contribute?
I just got here. I had a cat emergency, so sorry I didn't catch
okay.
what we're
Well,
talking about. Sorry.
We won't put you on the spot anymore.
But I mean, I'll add in all of this, Kris. I mean, I've been doing this for so long and have had some success, but still so much of this is a badly needed mindset shift for me. And
Yeah.
You're right. I have 2 counseling degrees. No one ever even stopped to offer me a marketing class or a sales class. No one said anything about how, no one told me if you build it, they don't actually come, I love the Field of Dreams movie, but it doesn't work that way. And so, I mean, all of these are huge mindset shifts for me that I may not even be aware that I'm having a sales conversation. I'm hoping you'll kind of hint at some of that later, but you're right. How many times was I in a conversation that really should have been opened up and I didn't even catch on, didn't even think about that? A lot of this is just, this is what we need, and this is what our people ask for, which is why you're here and why we're hoping to get more people into the immersion program, because it starts with shifting your mind and your heart toward sales, and to me.
Yeah.
I do want to say something. I did realize, because I've done like 20 years of working with community-based care with counseling, and people were compelled to work with me. And so you have to sell yourself on that very first visit. You have to build rapport and sell yourself on the very first visit. And that's sales. And I didn't realize that was sales until recently. And I'm like, hey, I know how to do this, but I have to change my mindset into, it's kind of the same thing, except the people who I'm having sales conversations with actually do want to talk to me instead of don't want to talk to me.
That's right.
So I got to see those opportunities.
They do. Exactly. They want to hear from you. And, Dahlia said in the chat, I'm working on having better sales conversations and asking powerful questions. And we're going to look at some of the questions, whether you ask them this exact way or not. We're going to look at some of the things that need to come out of your mouth. But basically everything is a sales conversation. And I think I don't remember if it was last week or week before that I mentioned about my client who's a financial advisor. And these are super high net worth individuals. And she's a great lady. She's crazy knowledgeable. But the thing that happens is when she's standing in front of someone, she doesn't think it's a sales conversation per se either, because she's just having a good time chatting with them. Except that what happens at the end is everybody's like, oh, it was so awesome to see you. And then they invite her out for coffee and stuff. But at that point, how does she bring up the fact that she would like to invest their money? Because now, guess what? That sounds sharky, right? So there's also a placement for when you insert what it is that you do into the conversation, which is to say pretty much right up front, because otherwise, so what happens with this lady is she ends up not saying it almost ever. Or if she does say it, then she feels awkward, and then she has to look for an opportunity because she doesn't want to come off as sharky, et cetera, et cetera. And we just don't want to even go down that road at all, right? Yeah. And you're right. I mean, what Courtney's saying about some people feel compelled to talk to her, that's probably because of who she's being, letting her inner light shine in that way. And also because she's probably got, and Courtney, I'm just going to put some words in your mouth here, but it's probably because she's also got some nice clarity about who it is she wants to work with and what it is she can do with and for them. Is that true? Yeah.
That's true. Yes.
Exactly. And that level of clarity, which is what the first 2 conversations were about, and I guess in January, you all also looked at your ideal clients. Having that level of clarity is what makes you compelling. You are magnetic at that point. And, you know, I attract a certain type of client that I don't market for anymore at all. I used to work almost exclusively with highly sensitive people. The counselors in the room probably know something more about that. And so it's a certain makeup, like a certain wiring. And I don't market for that anymore because it turned out not to be a great marketing strategy for me. But guess what? At least half my clients are highly sensitive people because, you know, water seeks the same, or some version of that. And so it's an interesting thing to just notice. Your clients probably look a lot like you. You have values or traits, or there's something about them that makes you compelling to them, which is also what's going to make it easier to have a sales conversation with them, because now you really are just talking amongst yourselves, a couple of people chatting it up. All right, let's take a look at what a sales conversation looks like. So first of all, I'm just going to run through these real quick, and then we'll go back through them step by step. So as a coach, this is how I do it. And I'm writing this from the perspective of someone who has a service-based business. So if you have a brick and mortar business, it'll be basically the same thing. Might be a little bit different. But if you've got anything that anytime you're selling a service, not something someone can just grab off the shelf, this is basically the arc of how it goes. And again, I learned this is a modification of 2 or 3 different, maybe 4 different sales techniques that I've seen. I just tried to figure out which bits of the different sales techniques would work for me. So first of all, we have a discovery session. Notice this is not a sample session. This is not a freebie. And as my former coach used to say, I am not Mrs. Fields. I don't give out free cookies. So which just used to crack me up because she's so mild-mannered. And then she'd get all, I'm not Mrs. Fields. I don't give out cookies. I'm like, all right, good to know. From such a mild-mannered lady, it was always a hoot to hear her say that. So we have a discovery session, which is actually a sales conversation. So this is not where you show off your wares. You show them off a tiny bit, but it's couched in, it's like a sales sandwich or something, right? You have a little bit of a sales conversation. You show off a little bit about what it is that you can do and how you do it. And then, you know, back to the sales conversation thing. So it's all completely interwoven. It's not like it's all one or the other, and this portion we do that and that portion we do the other. It's all smushed in there at the same time. So we have a discovery session, and then when you get to them, you want to love them up in your mind before you even talk to them. My friend Alan does this really well. He would just visualize that person in his mind's eye and just think how awesome they are and all that good stuff before he even got on the phone with them or went to coffee with them or whatever it was. Then you ask them what prompted them to contact you, because that's what's on their mind. There's some reason that they're getting in touch with you. You want to know what it is. Then you let them know how the conversation is going to go, what the order of things is. Because a lot of times what happens in a sales conversation is someone that you're talking to is going to be wondering, most of the time, almost the whole time, they're just going to be wondering when you're going to sell them the thing. When are you going to try to sell me something? So they have a little bit of a do me attitude with their arms crossed, and they're maybe leaning back a little bit. I'm sure we've seen that in some capacity. We are not in the business of convincing people. They either want our little snacks or they don't. There's no way we're going to know if they want our little snacks if we don't offer them. And what we're going to do by doing this in this order, you're basically asking permission or showing them the way so that they can relax and actually be present for a conversation. So you let them know, this is what, in my case, my conversations are generally 45 minutes to an hour long. I can do them shorter, but it turns out that just the arc of how long it takes and what I want to say, I don't know, it just turns out to be somewhere between 45 and 60 minutes. So I say something like, this is, what prompted you to contact me? This is what I thought we would do today. Because they usually say, blah, blah, blah. I was thinking about X, Y, and Z. And I don't know, you probably know how to do these things better than I do. So they always say something like that, almost always, at least 80% of the time. And I say, yeah, this is what I was thinking the order would be today, blah, 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 blah. Does that sound okay to you? And then they always say yes. So basically you're asking permission. All right, the next thing So this is all one sequence, right? This is all the getting it started sequence. Now we're into, that's like a navy, if you will. Now we're into the purple. So you ask them what it would look and feel like if they have their ideal trip in this case. Let's pretend like you're a travel agent, right? So we're all travel agents now. And so what's it going to be like if they look, the look and feel, if they have their ideal thing? It's like, why are you here? This is how the conversation is going to go. What would it look like if it went the way you wanted it to go? And then after they tell you the ideal thing, you ask them what's standing in the way of arranging and taking that trip. Basically, what, now that you've described your ideal thing to me, do you have a sense, to whatever degree that, and I usually couch the language, to whatever degree you're capable of telling me what it is you're after, go ahead and articulate that as best you can. Because some people are pretty tongue-tied when they come. They may or may not totally know what they want. Because as a coach, I help a lot of people get clear about what it is they're looking for. So I can't tell them to tell me what they want because they can't answer that question. So you're asking some kind of a question that they can answer, right? To the best of your ability, tell me what your ideal thing is going to look like. And then again, to the best of your ability, tell me if you have a sense of what might be getting in the way of that happening. Then ask them how they see you as the travel agent being able to best help them. Do you have a sense of what working with a coach would do for you? You know, this goes back to why they contacted you to begin with. So I know you said you were thinking you wanted to set some more clear goals. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you think a coach might help you do that? Whatever it is that you're offering. Then you listen to what they're saying. You're taking notes, either literally or mentally. So again, you're being with the people. You're there with them. You're not just checking off another thing on this, right? Because there are several more layers. This is a big piece of paper we're looking at here, right? Big page with lots of words on it. So you're going to pay attention to what they're saying, because then you're going to say it back to them. This is what I heard you say. Not just any one piece, but you're starting to put all these pieces together. Okay, so far I've heard you say that what prompted you to contact me was this. You wanted to go on a trip, and that your ideal trip would look and feel like this, except for you're thinking that you don't really know, is that going to be in Istanbul or was that like somewhere in the Bahamas? And you're thinking that a coach could help you figure that out, or a travel agent could help you figure that out by best maybe bringing you some really good brochures and sending you off to a few travel seminars. Did I get that right? Did I leave anything out? Because that's now what you say. Is there something else, now that you've heard me say all this back to you, is there something else that occurs to you that you hadn't mentioned yet? Or what's it like to hear it all back? You know, am I on the right track? And it's usually one of two things. They're like, no, that about sums it up. And they're maybe a little bit depresso when they say that because they want the thing and they don't have the thing yet. Or it prompts them to be like, you know what, hearing it out loud like that has already given me some value. I hear that quite a bit. Just saying it out loud because it's gotten all tangly in their mind. And whatever service it is that you're offering, part of the secret sauce is the untangling of that. Then, now this is where you take everything and you synthesize it and you tell them how you can help them. Okay, based on what I've heard, this is my sense of what might be the right order of events for you. We could have a sales seminar. We could, go to some travel brochures together. We could go to the travel expo in town next week. We could have some individual sessions where we brainstorm about what ideal travel looks like for you, et cetera, et cetera. So you're basically using your expertise at this point. This is where you're showing off your expertise. You're showcasing. This is how I can help you. You said all these things. I am totally good at that stuff. And here's how I would put it together for you. So you start to make them a bit of a plan for them. And then you ask them, is this what you were picturing? So is this conversation, is what I'm offering, am I on track with that sort of headspace that you were in when you thought it would be good to come talk to a coach? And I pretty much always have people say yes, like, yeah, that sounds good. This is what I was thinking about. And again, that will happen because you've picked the right kind of client to talk to. And if they say no, then you know that either something's gone wrong in the sales conversation or they're not the right kind of client. So either bump them over into the referral partner side of the thing, or you just say, that's great, you finish your coffee and you call it a day. You know, here's some free resources, or here's some stuff, or here's another colleague of mine that might be a better fit. I like to have something to say to the people that aren't, you know, the right fit. But this is generally where that stuff happens, where there's a breakdown or an alternative ending that doesn't involve you. It's usually right here. So then if they are still interested, you're going to share the logistics of how you work, because they've been wondering about that. They haven't asked already. And I never answer that question first unless I'm really, really pressed, because what we're trying to do is build value. And yes, the logistics are certainly the logistics. And if I just spit out of my mouth the first thing, it's $500 a month. You get 2 hours with me, you get free check-ins and as much as you want. And I require people to make a 3 to 6 month mental commitment, although I don't literally chain you to the desk to stay that long if it's not a fit. They go, okay, great, and then they leave. And then there is no sales conversation. So you don't answer this question first, even if they ask it first. And if they keep pressing, then you have to make a choice whether you are even interested in continuing the conversation with them. And if you are, then there's a way of saying it so that it doesn't land so much like, thanks for my free stuff, I have to go now. And this is why we don't pass out the free cookies or do a sample session. Because they will say, especially, I know, Angela, you said you were working on building a coaching business. If you give them a free sample session, they will almost never buy. But when you do a discovery session, they will almost always buy. And it's a subtle but really profound distinction. Okay, now.
I have a question.
Oh, go for it.
I like the word that you're using, discovery. This is very much like a counseling technique. I wrote that in the chat. But I was wondering, what about using the word consultation? Does that give you is that more like a sample session? I mean, is it okay?
Well, so maybe
I don't want people to think
session.
Strategy. Okay.
Yeah.
It was really about the semantics.
You want a big picture word like that doesn't imply freebie thing.
Okay. Thank you.
And I do want to run through each of these with questions and stuff too. So I'm glad you interrupted me. So at this point, they're going to have more, so yes, we work together and this is how much it costs and this is how long it takes. And this is the arc of what you can expect. And now again, more permission asking. How is that landing? Is this what you expected? What questions are arising as we chat through this? Then you ask them to work together. Based on what I'm hearing, it feels like to me that we're a really good fit. Sounds like it's working on your end as well. Would you like to go ahead and design that trip to Bahamas or wherever it is? And then they're going to say whatever they say. And if they don't, okay. And if they don't say, and I should put a little slide in here or a little arrow in here for this too. If they don't say, yes, I'm all ready to go. If you ask them to get started and they say, I'm not sure I'm going to be doing that, then you need to say, I totally get that. Do you mind if I ask you why? Like, this is just a conversation between us. So I'm totally fine I'm not going to take it personally or anything. Is there any reason you could see yourself not doing this? And so at that point, they will probably say something. It's too expensive. It takes too long. I'm afraid of the commitment. I don't want to put in that kind of work, whatever it is. So let's say they say yes, you get their money right then. You just got to get their money right away. Do not bill them. Do not invoice them. Do not chase them down later. I mean, I think I said during our very first webinar that I've only ever lost or misplaced or not received, somewhere between $1,200 and $1,500 in the 16 years I've been doing this, because I get the money first. And all the money that I didn't get first, that was my fault. I just was new and I didn't know what I was doing. And I know there are some industries it's hard to do it. If you were a travel agent, you would get a deposit up front, or you would have a retainer. Or if you're a counselor, maybe you're selling a package so that you can get stuff up front. But either way, you want to get the money conversation in there as soon as you can, because People are not committed until the money is on the table, basically. Then you schedule your next meeting time, again, right there, because what we're doing at this point is we're making sure the customer feels taken care of. If they say they need to think about it, which they might say up here, so when you ask them if they want to work together and they say, I don't know, let me get back to you. You say, that sounds great. How's next Tuesday at 11? Let's pull out our calendars and find a time when we can meet again. And you make it within a couple of days. I don't like to push it a week. That's too long for people to talk themselves out of it.
I have a question again.
Yep.
When you talk about getting their deposit, like, how do you do that?
I get their credit card number.
And people will, at this point, will give you their credit card number?
Well, theoretically, at this point, you spend at least 45 minutes together, and they've come to you from some potential trusted source.
All right. So yeah, they're a solid lead at this point.
Yeah, like yesterday, I had a guy say, and I've seen this guy twice. I met him at this real estate talk I gave a couple weeks back. I think I mentioned that talk last time. And so that's all fine. But, he was like, well, let me think about it. And I'll check with my wife or fiance and, I'll let you know. It's like, that sounds great, Norman. Can we just coordinate that on Wednesday? And he was like, oh, sure. Because now they're on the hook, right? Because now we're going back to the fact that we're not Mrs. Fields and we're passing out no free cookies around here. So you have to have a scheduled follow-up time, preferably where they call you. I always make them call me because I don't want to be doing the work. As a coach, I'm a catalyst. I'm a guide. I'm a high-level thinker. I'll hold your hand as much as you want during the conversation and making the mind shifts and all that kind of stuff. But I will not hold your hand in terms of emailing you 100 times, chasing you down, trying to track down the money. I'm just not going to do that. You can tell from the tone of voice, I'm just so not okay with any of that stuff. And not just for me, but for any of my clients. I had a lady doing a lot of consulting work, and the scope of the project was massively underscoped. And the project took like 40 extra hours, 40. And she didn't want to say that to the people that had hired her. And I'm like, well, why not? I mean, this is ridiculous. She's like, well, I'm just going to have to suck it up. And, and she was mad and resentful. And I'm like, that is not okay. You have to tell them that they scoped the project wrong. She's like, well, I didn't mention it early enough. I'm like, I don't care. You can't suck up 40 hours of work for free. And so there's just a level of having some really firm boundaries that having a sales conversation brings up. So wherever you still feel a little wiggly within yourself, it's going to show up in your sales conversation like that. It's going to be the first objection out of your potential client's mouth. It's going to be the first place where it breaks down. It's going to be you not asking for the money because you're not clear about money in your own mind. There's something that's going to happen. So this is why we have to clean up our side of the street first before we can do this with the other people.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Along that line, I met with a lady this past week, and we have kind of been talking about getting a coaching package started for a couple of months, but we actually went to lunch, sat down and talked more about my program and the offerings that I could give her and what her needs were. And then I had a proposal for her. She was interested in it. I gave her the proposal.
Right.
And she works for a nonprofit, and this would have to come out of professional development funds, which she didn't have, but she was having a board meeting tonight.
Okay.
So I have sent her all the proposals. She also asked for extra proposals to add on to some things. So how do I proceed from there? What step is that in this?
Man, she's putting you through some hoops. So yeah, this guy, Norman, asked me, and I've run into him twice, right? And I've had several conversations with him. And he's like, okay, if you could just put everything in a proposal. And I've had several people do this. And I said, no, Norman, I love you. I think this is a great conversation. I'd love to work together, but I'm not going to send you a proposal. I just don't do that. I said it just like that, which I know my 15-year ago self would never have been able to say it like that. But I have said that. Actually, that's not fair to say. I'm sure I said that pretty early on because I had another client, same thing. total, just to pick on men for a minute, total alpha male type. You know, little lady, you just write that on up in a proposal for me. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to be happening. You want to, this is what I said to the guy, because I could tell he needed a pushback. And I said, dude, you've got enough information. You can hire me or not, either way, but I'm not sending you any more stuff. And he hired me the next day. And we worked together for a year because I just sort of got him on that level, I think. Right. And I think that's what he appreciated, because nobody else was pushing back and he needed that kind of pushback. So that's what made him feel taken care of. So I had to put my big girl pants on that day, but we had a blast. That year was a hoot, you know? So when we're looking at a proposal for an organization, which I did just submit one, and hopefully the check should be at the post office now, we'll find out. But I actually do write proposals if it's something that warrants a proposal. There's a really good guy, Alan Weiss, has got the best proposal templates around. Proposal templates. And so you submit the proposal, you follow his template. He's got a bunch of different boxes to fill out. You fill out the ones that are most appropriate for what you need for that particular client, and all kinds of different formats and stuff. Anything from a casual little letter of intent that somebody just signs the bottom, all the way up to a, you know, this is the situation as I heard it. This is, these are the players. This is my proposal. And this is how I think we should proceed. And this is how much it's going to cost. And, you know, like a multi-page situation. So for this lady, I put in like, I don't know, it's like a 2-page proposal because she works for the Dutch consulate and they're going to pay. So hopefully I have a piece of mail from the Dutch consulate in my mailbox. That would be lovely.
So it sounds like you, correct me if I'm wrong, you might say to Angela's already promised this woman a proposal. She's given her one. She's let her know that she will add a few things to it, but you would, it sounds like from something you said a little bit earlier, you would at least ask Angela to kind of put a date on it. You had your board meeting tonight, let's get together 2 days from now and not really drag it out. What else could you do though? Just
well, that is what you
forward.
Do. And you follow up a couple of times, right? So the first thing is, I stopped writing I never started writing proposals because I don't come from corporate America to begin with. You know, my background, I've worked in companies, but I never worked in a company that was like that. So I don't have that mentality, and I don't coach people, generally speaking, who have that mentality. So it's not required for me and the peeps that I work with. My pal Heidi and Nancy and even Greg, they all come out of, well, Heidi and Nancy come out of that environment. So everything for them is hierarchical and structured and has to be in writing. So that's the water they swim in. So it depends on your client. And if they're putting you in the grant money or something like that, then yeah, you're going to have to put it in writing because otherwise they won't give you the money almost ever. But if it's an individual, I would say if you do anything like that at all, just do it as a letter of intent. It's 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs and you know, you're done in 10 minutes. And then still the same thing. When shall I follow up with you? You're always asking the questions. When shall I follow up with you? The assumption is you will be following up. When will I be doing that?
So I need to ask then, you said you make your clients call you, and I'm all about that. Like if someone wants to work with me, like locally especially, I'm like, I don't chase my clients down. If you call me, I'll answer the phone every time you do, but I'm not going to chase you down. So when we do this follow-up thing, like schedule your next meeting for someone who says they need to think about it or whatever, do we call them back in that case?
Nope, they're calling you back. Yeah, and what'll happen is they'll, probably half of them will either hire you or let you go before that day comes. You know, either it's often, so let's just say it's Tuesday afternoon, usually by Wednesday morning or Wednesday midday. Let's say our follow-up is on Thursday or Friday. Usually by early Wednesday, so not even a full 24 hours, I already have their answer at least half the time.
That's great. I love that. I would totally have not done that. Like I would have done the follow-up myself. So making them call you on that part too, I think is just so less work, much less work for you.
Recommitting, right? Because this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get them enrolled in the possibility for their life. And I mean, we're here to be instruments for them to achieve what they're after. And we're not their mother. right? And we're
So,
also not a nonprofit.
so some of the NACWE team just works through the Donald Miller story brand stuff. And of course, we were talking about it. So some of our NACWE sisters are all into it too. And
Yeah.
so let me just make sure that I understand. A big proposal is not the same. I mean, he says, you know, map out the steps. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to call me. You're going to sign up for this. Then you're going to get this. And this is going to happen. And this is how we work together.
Yeah.
Making that strategic plan for them is different than handing them a proposal.
Well, I mean, it could be one and the same thing, you know, and like for the Dutch embassy, that's what I wrote down. I mean, I did write over the course of 6 sessions, these things, you know, we up to and included, but not limited to, these things will be happening, right? Whatever the verbiage is that makes that all make sense, right? So it's like, we're going to X, Y, and Z. I've got a workbook, which I do. So I make it sound like we're super official. We'll be working through these aspects of the workbook. We'll be focusing on these things. The scope of the project is this main goal. And then within that, we've got other things that we will potentially address as needed, because some of these tangents produce some pretty awesome results, but we're not going to know that until we get in there and start messing around with things. And so I write a plan, but I almost never send it to my clients because I don't love paperwork, Karen. As you know, I can barely be bothered to answer my emails. So the last thing I want to do is offer more paper stuff for people. Some clients, I know some coaches rather do that. I definitely have a coaching agreement, but even within the coaching agreement, I don't write the steps down. And you definitely never want, and we'll move off of this proposal thing in a second, but you definitely never want to write down literally everything you're going to do. Because a while back I was coaching a Catholic nun, no kidding, it's a true story. And she had just left being the executive director of whatever charity it was. And apparently the way it works in the Catholic Church is that whoever's in the hierarchy tells you what you can do, you know, like your next job is this. And so she lobbied to start her own thing, servicing Catholic charities, to get them into the computer age, basically. You're working with social media and stuff like that, which apparently the Catholic Church is just awful at. Who knew? So she wrote this great proposal for this charity, and the guy was all into it. And then when she followed up with him, he said, no, I'm not going to do that, thanks. And then within a month, she saw all of her stuff being used verbatim in the exact format, right? I mean, you know, they're going to hell for that. These are Catholics, right? This is so, so wrong. So, when you make the proposal, I mean, my plan is stuff like figure out the big foundation of you. So even if I do write it down and give it to people, it says, we're going to figure out the foundation of you. And then we're going to look at how that does or doesn't show up currently in your life. And people are like, I don't even know what that means. They can't steal it because there's nothing to. Right.
This is good. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good. So then last couple pieces here. You send them their welcome packet because you've got some sort of welcome packet. Because again, this last little piece here, so up here we're like getting to, wherever my cursor is, up here we're getting to know people. We're laying the land. The purple stuff is all about the actual sales conversation. And then this green stuff here at the bottom is the perceived value, making sure that the people feel taken care of. And so you send them a welcome packet. You add them to your keep in touch strategy, whatever that is, your newsletter list or whatever it is you've got going, the way you keep track of people. You deliver some amazing service, and then you welcome them back at some point. You know, if you're a travel agent and they went on a trip, you welcome them back home. You send them a card or something when they return. Or you keep them on your keep in touch strategy, and then you get a chance to hopefully sell them something again in the future. So the thing about all this stuff is that you're passing the hors d'oeuvre tray the whole time. They're either hungry for the little snacks or they aren't, but they're definitely not going to take any snacks if you don't pass the snacks around, make the snacks look attractive, sound articulate when you're talking about the snacks, and literally ask them if they're ready for a little snack. And then you've got to figure out what your sales style is. Like I said, I pulled this thing together from like 3 or 4, there's a really old school sales book, which is just painful to mention because I barely made it through alive. because it's so old school. The guy was literally a door-to-door encyclopedia and vacuum sales guy, so we're not going to go there. But it talks about the dedication and the stick-to-itiveness of all of this stuff. And then other people too, with a little bit kinder, gentler styles. And then obviously there's some place in here where you get stuck, right? There's some place in this whole deal where you get maybe a little flustered or tongue-tied or shy. So the thing we want to look at now is how do you identify with this, right? Which places do you feel like you get a little stuck? And then how can we basically work through your own obstacles so you can help the other people work through theirs? So I know that's a lot of stuff, and it's actually not hard. I think the hardest part, if you will, is having the guts to do it, to be that level of bold. You know, when I first heard my very first original coach from coaching school say, "I'm not Mrs. Fields, I don't hand out cookies," she might as well have snapped when she said it. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, that is just, I can't even imagine saying something or feeling that way or being that, like, this is how it goes. And now you heard how I'm talking, like, oh man, if they don't call me, I just move on next. It doesn't mean it doesn't hurt sometimes if it's somebody you were hoping to work with, but you know, they may not be in the mood for little snacks. Maybe their stomach hurts today. We don't know.
I'm very encouraged by this.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I have this list and I have sat on it, and I can offer these. And I originally didn't have a discovery session set up in my process. I had an application, but I think the discovery session is much better, mainly because I'm really good face to face, like in a conversation. And
you have an application for your discovery session. Some people do that.
Yeah, I think it's a redundant though. If I'm going to be talking to them, then I do it because I want to know where to place them. And so, I'm very encouraged by this because I can totally do this.
Yeah,
I can totally do this. I can do this right now with what I have right now, and that is very encouraging to me.
Yeah, right on. Well, I'm going to stop the share, and I'm going to put the. So we are running an immersion program where we're going to go through all of this stuff. And let me just grab that link. Oh, it's going to take me too long to find it. Do you have that link, Karen? Yeah. So it's all from the Get Clients Now book. So the sales cycle stuff that the sales conversation stuff is not really in the book. There's a little snippet of it in the back, but you know, it's going to be a lot of time. We spend 2 hours on 2 separate days, so 4 hours total, looking at your universal marketing cycle, your marketing strategies, your ideal client, all that kind of stuff. And then we spend 4 weeks together where we get to talk twice a week. The first week we talk 3 times. And then after that, twice a week for the next 4 weeks, where we get to do a lot of these things. So this is a chance to really, where the rubber hits the road kind of thing. And whatever, 28 days. It's all it takes. It's March 4th through April 5th. And it makes a huge difference. It can really.
I think the benefit of it is that it's so easily, walking through it with you for 28 days, we can just repeat. Like you said that, I think, rinse.
Yeah, total rinse and repeat. You know, it's like, I like to think of all these things we're doing and talking about as a learning lab. So it's all just information for the next time around, right? And like Courtney's saying, she's already got a sales process. And now as we talk this through, she's realizing some places where she might want to tweak it to make it a little bit more effective, make it a little bit more your own, right? Exactly.
I have a question.
Yeah, Beth.
If you miss a day, like if doctor's appointment or something, I mean, is that going to be recorded, or is there?
Yeah, they're all recorded for sure. And if you can come to the foundation sessions, which those 2 initial ones, which are on a Wednesday and a Friday, then that helps you get everything just in real time. We kind of try to do a bunch of stuff together if we can. And then,
and last week you said if we missed something, you know, it's all going to be in a Dropbox. So Beth, if you
all
miss
the resources are in Dropbox and the recordings and stuff. Yeah. So we have one central location, and you don't have to have Dropbox to get into Dropbox either, if you don't want to sign up for one more thing.
Okay. Thank you.
So, yeah, it'd be great. So that starts, well, next week. So it'd be great to have all of you come and join us for sure. And if you've got questions, obviously you can email me, check out the sales page. You can talk to Karen because she's doing it with a lady that I trained actually, which is nice. And I am the director of training for Get Clients now. I think the new ladies probably don't know that. So yeah. Anyway.
I have an additional question.
Great.
Now, is this going to be an additional fee to the NACWE fee, or does this come along with the?
No, it's a separate standalone program that you pay for on your own.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. Cool. So either way, whether
sales conversations.
Yeah. Well, I mean, exactly. Yeah, this would be the place where I say, is there any reason why you wouldn't be joining us for the immersion program?
Or is there any reason why you wouldn't be going ahead and joining NACWE? That's we've been talking about.
Exactly.
Years. No pressure, right?
Right, no pressure. So, I mean, obviously we have a good time, and it's been great to do this 3 weeks in a row because it's fun to see everybody and start to develop a bit of a bond and all. So if you're interested in pursuing that, let's do it for another month together. If you're not, that's totally cool. I encourage you to watch all 3 of these again, because as we saw, there's a lot of information that's very dense and packed in there. A lot of things that you can pull out and figure out how to make your own. And it would be lovely to see you, of course, so we can continue the conversation and the business love, all that good stuff.
So I'll also post, we had some posts coming up for the immersion program, and they just got blocked by co-schedule. We had to go in and push the button and say, stop this and get it right. So you'll start seeing, starting tomorrow, you'll start seeing some posts about this in all of the NACWE Facebook pages. And so if you lost this link, it's going to be repeated, and we'll do some videos about it and things like that as well. So, I hope you'll join us. We've got several people in there already. We've got several people from the NACWE team going to join us too, because I want them to use it for their own benefit, but I also know that they'll help me to use it as we, keep growing NACWE as well. And like I said at the beginning of this webinar, if you were there at the first minute, I can't do this by myself. And praise God, I don't have to, right? So God bless you. Let me pray us out, and thank you, Kris. This was above the call of duty. This is
it's been super fun. It's been great to get to know everybody, and I hope to see you ladies all again.
So grateful. Can't wait to see what the next 28 days hold as well. So let me pray for us. Father God, bless Kris as this immersion program kind of pops out there. We know there are already people who signed up. Lord, we would ask you to even double this next week the enrollment in that group. It's so much more fun to do it with a group of people, and walking through it so far for me has been a total game changer. We want to use it wisely, Lord, and so just give Kris and her back office folks what they need to keep pulling it together, and then lead and guide each one of us, even with the little snippets of things that we learned today in the mindset shift. I don't want to go back to the way I was thinking. I want to take this forward. So, Lord, help us to do that. May all we do bring you glory and honor every step of the way. We ask these things in Christ's name. Amen. Thank you, everyone. God bless.
Yeah. Have a great afternoon. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Okay.
Thanks, Kris.
You're welcome. Thank you.